It's time to get away. Today we have two very special guests.
Travel journalist Justin Walter and Kinga Phillips highlighting Brazil. They just got back. Good to see you both. All right, let's start off with where exactly you went. I don't even want to try to pronounce it because I don't want to get it wrong.
Okay, so Brazil has 26 states, and we went to one of them. It's called Mato Grosso do Sul. It is basically in the corner right over by Paraguay, and it is beautiful wetlands. And we got to stay at a posada, which is a working farm. It's been in the family for 5 generations. Absolutely gorgeous terrain. The sunset's some of the best I've ever seen. You can see a caiman swimming there. So we got to do a bunch of safaris. It's kind of like African safaris in jeeps. We did night safaris with the coolest Milky Way views you have ever seen in your life. That is a caiman. That is the younger cousin of crocodiles and alligators. Much cuter, much sweeter. Probably still don't want to go swimming with them, but there are 3.6 million of those in the wetlands. See, there they are, all their friends. They just hang out and have parties everywhere. We did the safaris, walked around, saw the wildlife. There are also capybara, which are essentially like giant, friendly, slightly judgmental rodents. They are so cute, aquatic, tropical birds like toucans, macaws. It is honestly like an exotic pet store flying around. That's the capybara. They are super cute. They swim sometimes with birds on their heads and just graze. So we got to walk around. We drove around. We honestly got to experience just some of the coolest wildlife you can imagine. Those are egrets that roost in the trees. You've got the cowboys there. Since it's a working farm, you have the animals, the wildlife, and all the cattle that are interacting. The capybara are grazing amongst the cattle. The culture there is beautiful and wonderful. There's Justin and I on horseback through the wetlands, going around the caiman and the capybara. Those horses were brought in the 1500s, and they've actually adapted to feeding with their snouts in the water, which is such a cool fact.
Wow.
And then we also got to go piranha fishing, you guys, which is awesome. Piranha have the same PR agents as sharks, which is basically the Hollywood horror machine. And Hollywood will tell you that they can strip a human body in 5 minutes. I will tell you that I probably could have swam in that lake and been fine. But look at those teeth, you guys. I'm holding it there, and I'm going to put a hook in its mouth because I want to show kind of the bite reflex. And they absolutely could take off a finger.
Wow.
Doesn't it take, I feel like I read somewhere it would take like 100 piranha to actually eat an entire human. Am I right? Like it would take a lot of them.
It's more like 97, Megan.
Okay, 97.
But still, though, even if 5 or 6 of them get to you, I'm sure you'd feel it, right?
They can do some damage. They actually specifically said, do not handle the piranha. And I was like, give me that piranha.
Of course you did. I love that.
Kinga, she took it off the hook, and that's what Kinga does. You know, she's one with nature.
But you got to hold them real tight because those teeth are sharp.
Oh.
Well, she deals with sharks. Piranhas.
It's nothing for her.
Yeah,
Nothing.
exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you showed us quite a few things. Those are your favorite activities? Are there other things? Let's just say somebody's not that aggressive. Maybe somebody says, you know what, that looks great, but I'm just not comfortable. And the piranhas are going through the wetland. I'm sure there's all types of activities that you did there. What other things can you explore there in the state?
Yeah, well, another part of the state we went to was called Bonito. It is a small town in a different area, and it is a watery wonderland. It is booming with ecotourism, with a ton of adventures that you can do in the water. My favorite one was we went down a river called Rio de Plata. Now think of it like this. It is a lazy river where you swim about 2 miles in the most crystal clear water I have ever seen in my life. There were hundreds to thousands of fish, beautiful, colorful fish in this water. There's even an anaconda. We didn't see any anaconda, but there are anaconda in the water. We saw a caiman. How close did we get to? About like 50 feet or so?
Yeah.
We got 50 feet or so to a caiman. But let me tell you, this was about a 3-hour journey where you put on a wetsuit. If you're not comfortable in the water, you can wear a life jacket, and you go snorkeling down this crystal clear river. It is, like I said, one of my favorite things that we did in Brazil. It was on the top of the list, and I've never done anything in my life anywhere with such clear water and beautiful wildlife that we did in that river.
You
So
see,
this area is kind of like the Mexican Yucatan in the sense that it's karst topography. So you have the cave systems and you also have rivers like this.
Oh, and this is Kinga playing with a natural spring underwater. So it even has natural springs where you can get in and get up close and personal with it.
tell us more. I think you touched on it. Now, were they water caves, or are you saying caves in general? Tell us about the cave adventures.
So the karst topography is essentially limestone. And if you've been to the Yucatan in Mexico, you know about the cenotes, very popular. And here they have the same topography, but just not as touristy, which is great. So it really feels like you're off the beaten path. And one of the ones that we went to that was mind-boggling was called Abismo on Humas, and you rappel down 236 feet. You see us going into this crevasse. You're like, wow, are we going to make it down there? And then it opens up and you are in this cavern that is massive. And at the bottom of it is a lake, and the lake is about 260 feet deep. And you can scuba dive it and you can snorkel it. So they are so protective of these natural wonders that they only let in a handful of people a day. You can see the water way below us there. You are truly just hanging in this void. And then they have this floating platform. They take you out in a boat. They show you just the magnificence of the inside of this cave. Now, the water is really cold, and you put on a wetsuit and you get in, and look at this. You get to dive among stalagmites. Now, you guys, I have been diving all over the world, and I was blown away by this. These are massive structures. You can see them in comparison to us. And then in a corner of the cave, they have the bones of an anteater that are 2,000 years old. I mean, look at that. There's just, even looking back on that, it wows me. I've never seen anything like that. That is spectacular. And that water
is so gorgeous.
You know,
Wow.
you mentioned kind of off the beaten path. I mean, I almost feel like, would all these be considered off the beaten path? I mean, obviously, with a crane that's going to lower you into those caves, there's the people that are manning these things. But do you see a lot of people? Or are these things you really have to, or am I just naive? I'm, the uninitiated, so to speak. Do you see a lot of people that make these, or is this more kind of those hidden gems, so to speak?
I would say that the town of Bonito in itself is a hidden gem because it's not frequently traveled to a lot by a lot of tourists. However, when you are at some of these sites, you will see other tourists at the caves, at the locations. But in terms of numbers I've seen elsewhere in the world, a lot smaller. And I would say that it is an off the beaten path destination as a whole. And the ecotourism there, like Kinga said, they limit the number of people that go to each site each day. So you're not going to be overwhelmed with the number of tourists that you might be in other locations that have similar type attractions. And in another spot that we went to that had a beautiful water adventure that's not necessarily going into a cave was one called Boca da Onça. And it is another rappel. We rappelled about 300 feet down above a river, rappelling again, where it's not that difficult. It might look difficult, but it was a lot of fun. Kinga and I constantly kept telling her, I feel like we're on the Amazing Race. All these challenges, I was like, here we are rappelling again on the Amazing Race and just having a blast. So you rappel about 300 feet down to this river, and then there's a trail that takes you to 15 different waterfalls. Now, the trail is very well maintained. It is, a popular tourist destination and adventure, but the waterfall scene there is beautiful. There's waterfalls that are over 500 feet tall. This is going to show you kind of us rappelling, and then it's going to zoom out to see kind of the lay of the land, and it's going to show and reveal a waterfall at the end of this beautiful, beautiful area. And again, the waterfall trail is something that we enjoyed. It is kind of almost like an Instagram or social media, paradise, where every turn, every place you go on the trail, it's like a perfect Instagram photo and shot. Here's one of the most beautiful, tallest waterfalls at the location. And we had fun. How many hours would you say we were there?
We were there half a day.
Yeah, half a day, where we just walked around the trails, felt like we were in a jungle. And on this trail, we did not see many tourists. There was only one other group we saw the entire time while we were on this trail exploring all the waterfalls.
So when you are dealing with these sorts of beautiful locations, they're very remote. So getting to them can be a little challenging or maybe a little intimidating. What's the best way to approach visiting these sites?
So we flew from LA through Dallas to Sao Paulo, and then we hopped over to Campo Grande. And from there, probably the best way to do it is to go by these small planes. You can drive, but we are talking about vast distances. So we flew on these little planes, and it took us about 45 minutes from Campo Grande to get to our Posada, and then about another 45 minutes to get to Bonito. Again, these are really remote areas, but what I found so interesting is you are kind of in the middle of nowhere, and Bonito in particular was a town that kind of sprung up in its modern sense starting in the 80s, but the infrastructure there, from safety with the rappelling to the lovely hotels that we stayed in to the restaurants to really everything, is spectacularly done.
Sure.
So it's really impressive. So Megan, you would be very comfortable there at the Posada.
Oh, good. You know me well. She does know me well.
But there's also a lot of adventure for people that want to get off the beaten path. I think we saw 2 American tourists there the entire time.
Wow.
Okay, before we wrap it up, I have a quick question for you. You must have a photographer that travels with you, and that photographer must be excellent, because the shots, some of it look like drone footage, others, I'm blown away by what you've done, but also how well you've documented it.
Thank you. Well, Kinga can speak to Joe Sills. We want to give him a shout out. He is a National Geographic writer, photographer, videographer. He was on the trip with us, one of Kinga's very good friends, and a lot of that footage that you saw was from Joe Sills. So shout out to Joe Sills.
Yep, courtesy of Joe.
But you guys are very good photographers.
And we're good.
I know. Yeah, you guys aren't too shabby yourself.
But someone's got to take a 2-shot.
Exactly. Guys, you're the best.
You are the best.
I know that was a spectacular trip. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. You can follow Justin's travels by visiting his website, justinwalter.com, or on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, ATW Justin. And you can get more information about Kinga. Follow her as well. Go to her website, kingaphillips.com. Follow her on Instagram, @KingaPhillips.